All right, so we've been looking at some Hebrew on the constellations, but we are now going to move over and start our Shabbat study. I actually like this. This was the Targum online. I may bring this over for us later, so I'm going to leave that up. But we're going to go to Colossians 1 ISR, Restored Name Translation. Upstream connect error. Okay, let's try again. All right, we will go in. I think I'm in this window. We'll go back in here. Here we go. Colossians 1. And it, of course, is Greek. We're going to the ISR. Getting rid of the ad when it pops up, maybe. All right. This page already has it's already built in ads. All right. Terry, you want to read?
Sure.
Okay.
Shaul, an emissary of Yahushua Mashiach by the desire of Elohim, and Timothy, our brother, to the set apart ones in Colossae, and true brothers in Messiah. Favor to you and peace from Elohim, our Father, and the Master Yahushua Mashiach. We have thanks to the Elohim and Father of our Master Yahushua Mashiach, praying always for you. Having heard of your belief in Messiah Yeshua and of your love for all the set apart ones, because of the expectation that is laid up for you in the heavens, of which you heard before in the word and the truth of the good news of Besorah, which has come to you, as always in all the world, it is bearing fruit, as growing, as also among you, since the day you heard and knew the favor of Elohim in truth, as you also learned from Ephraim, our beloved fellow servant, who is a true servant of Messiah on your behalf, who also declared to us your love in the Spirit. That is also why we, from the day we heard, have not ceased praying for you and asking that you be filled with the knowledge of his desire in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, to walk worthily of the Master, pleasing all, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of Elohim, being empowered with all power according to the might of his esteem, for all endurance and patience with joy, giving thanks to the Father who has made us fit to share in the inheritance of the set apart ones in the light, who has delivered us from the authority of darkness and transferred us into the reign of his Son, of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption through his blood and forgiveness of sins, who in the likeness of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of all creation, because in him were created all that are in the heavens and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or rulerships or principalities or authorities, all have been created through him and for him. And he is before all, and in him all hold together. And he is the head of the body, the assembly, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that he might become the one who is first in all. Because in him all the completeness was well pleased to dwell, and through him to completely restore to favor all unto himself, whether on earth or in the heavens, having made peace through the blood of his stake. And you, who were once estranged and enemies in the mind by wicked works, but now he has completely restored to favor in the body of his flesh through death, to present you set apart as blameless and unreprovable before him. If indeed you continue in the belief, founded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the expectation of the Besorah, which you heard, which was proclaimed to every creature under the heaven, of which I, Shaul, became a servant, who now rejoice in my sufferings for you and fill up in my flesh what is lacking in Messiah's afflictions for the sake of his body, which is the assembly, of which I became a servant according to the administration of Elohim, which was given to me for you to fill the word of Elohim, the secret which has been hidden from ages and from generations, but now has been revealed to his set apart ones, to whom Elohim desired to make known what are the riches of the esteem of this secret among the Gentiles, which is Messiah in you, the expectancy of esteem, whom we announce, warning every man and teaching every man in all wisdom, in order to present every man perfect in Messiah Yeshua, for which I also labor, striving accordingly to the working of him who works in me in power. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot in there. That was just chapter 1, right?
Right. That was 1. So we know it was written by Paul. Shaul.
And Timothy. It's the same Timothy who wrote Timothy.
So it's talking about they've heard of their belief in Messiah. I was listening to Celestial yesterday, and she was talking about I think it's in Matthew 12, where the man had a son who was demon possessed, and the demon kept throwing him in the fire and in the water. Thought that was interesting. It's like, wow, fire and water.
Yeah, that
How
is
interesting is that in terms of like judgment we've heard is coming. So I thought that was interesting, but the man was like, your disciples couldn't heal him, so if you could, would you please heal him? And then Yahushua says to him, if you can believe, it's not about what I can do, but if you can believe, all things are possible. So he put it up to his belief, and then the man says, I do believe. And then he said, help my unbelief. So she was making a point here. This man has lived with this child his whole life, and he's had these these demons and manifestations of the demonic, and they've had to try to save this kid's life over and over and over. And so she said, of course that's going to wear you down. You've believed and nothing's happened, and you brought it to the Messiah's, you brought the child to the Messiah's disciples, and they couldn't heal him. So of course your belief is going to be kind of rattled. But Yahushua was like, it's not just what I can do, but it's what do you believe I can do? Because if you believe I can do this, then all things are possible. So really cool.
It's really cool. And we were talking about the kingdom of heaven is within you. I've had that on my mind a lot. So yeah. the kingdom, we're in the kingdom. We're in the kingdom right now. So my belief inside me, I'm dwelling in the kingdom. I have authority in the kingdom. If I believe I have authority, or am I just existing, hanging out in my kingdom, or am I and walking in power in my kingdom authority that I have inside me?
We're not just bystanders. We have to partner with him. He's waiting for us to show up with our belief. I also shared, I think in Water Cooler, if not, I may have shared it on my Facebook page today, but it was about a guy named Alan. I forget if that was his first name or his last name, but back in the day, maybe the early 1900s, and this woman brought her son, a poor woman. She saved up her money or whatever, and she brought her son to this teacher, prophet person, healer. And the child had like 26 different diseases and infirmities and deformities, serious deformities. And of course they didn't know Yahuwah's name back then. It was still within the 2,730-year curse. But the healing went out in the name of God, of course, because that's the name that they knew. But the child was completely healed, the article said. And not only that, but everybody else that was there in wheelchairs stood up. People brought their hearing aids, threw them on the stage or whatever, and their glasses, their walking, the blind would throw their walking sticks, and everybody was healed that was there. So it wasn't such that, oh, well, the disciples had healing powers back then, but then we haven't had that since then. It wasn't that way at all. Just amazing healings happened. And of course, she had come because of her belief, and she had been told by the doctors, only God could save your child at this point. You know, you're going to need something supernatural because there's nothing we can do. And so she got herself and her son in her car and drove 250 miles to get to this like revival, it sounded like. And not only was the child healed, but everybody there was healed. Everybody that showed up, suited up, showed up. That's a participation. So here, having heard of your belief, that's a participation. They have to believe. And then they have love for each other. Would John say they'll know that we're belong to him because of our love for each other? And they have an expectation. This is, in other translations, this is the word hope, but that has ties to a deity's name. So the Hebrew would translate out more correctly, or even the Greek in this case, to expectation, because of the expectation that is laid up for you in the heavens. Wow, that's pretty cool.
That's very cool. I mean, that's just talking about what we are here, what we want. You know, what do you want? I want to be with him for eternity. You know, I want to live in peace forever, shalom forever.
Of which you heard before in the word of the truth of the Tob news, which has come to you. So it's there, they heard it, it came to them, and then they believed in it. It says, as also in all the world it is bearing fruit and growing, since the day you heard and knew the favor of Elohim in truth.
I did read in a commentary, let's see here, which commentary? This was written by Paul in Rome. He was in Rome and he wrote this. Nelson's compact series. He wrote this in Ephesians and one other.
Yeah.
One when he was in Rome. In prison. And he's talking about joy at the bottom of this, talking about it. He's joyful in his being in prison.
And so it's because of their belief and their expectation in heaven for them. It says this also, why we, from the day we heard, have not ceased praying for you and asking that you be filled with the knowledge of his desire in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, to walk worthily of the master. So walking worthy, that was also something I heard Celestial talking about, walking worthy, or having unworthy words, having a tongue that is, I think she called it salted, but salted with like a saltiness, like a inappropriateness, uncleanness. But how important it is to bridle the tongue, for instance. But this is walking worthily of the master.
Pleasing all, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of Elohim. So how do you increase in the knowledge? By studying his Torah, studying his word.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard somebody else talk. I think it was I'm not going to think of his name right now. One of the commentaries today's, his first name is Ben, but I can't think of his last name right now. But he was talking about, he and the guy that he was talking with, I think his name was Vonnie. They were talking about this knowledge shall be increased, that it talks about, I think in Daniel 12, that it was actually knowledge of Elohim. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I've never heard that before. Have you guys ever heard that before?
I
Can
have.
you just repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah.
didn't-
So these two guys were talking about where it talks in Daniel 12 about knowledge so increase, men shall travel from here and there, and knowledge so increase. They said this is the knowledge of Elohim, and I hadn't heard that before. That it's not just knowledge for the sake of knowledge, but it was knowledge of Elohim will increase.
Yeah, I think that's part, especially in Daniel, where it's talking about seal up the book until the end. So
Mhm.
it's going to be unsealed and knowledge will increase.
Got it.
That's what I think.
I think that also relates to what you were just saying, Darla, to the other subject we thought about studying today, because it's that conviction. The world doesn't know him.
Yeah.
So if there's going to be an increase of knowledge, as Daniel talked about,
Yeah.
is that an increase of knowing the word,
Mm-hmm.
our
Yeah.
Savior?
Yeah, maybe Terry's right on that, because it talks immediately. I could go over here where we were looking at the constellation. I could put in Daniel 12. I think Terry's got a point, because it is talking about that the word was hidden and sealed up until then. We know that's in verse 4. But you, Daniel, hide the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall diligently search, and knowledge shall increase.
Yeah, it's part of it. Like codes are part of it. But it's also, I think, unsealing the book is when we study individually and we're in fellowship with each other.
Yeah.
That the Ruach is just going to be with us, he's going to open us up even more to knowledge.
Yeah,
Knowledge.
eyes need to be open, right? Eyes need to be open, ears need to be opened, hearts, minds need to be opened.
Yeah, proportional to what's going on. I mean, not proportional, more. We're going to be given more than to what's going on outside. We're not, what's going on around us, the darkness and what they're doing is not going to come at us without us being prepared.
Now, like the fullness of the Gentiles you're talking about?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah. I mean, he's going to fill us like even more, like this time he's going to expand the time, I think, like this time that we have right now set apart to study and worship and gain knowledge of him. He's going to expand that. This time is expanded now during these times where we understand more. We're going to see past, we're going to see into what we need to see now. He's going to give us that more.
Yeah,
We
so
keep, sorry.
go ahead, Bonnie.
We keep coming across this word knowledge and understanding, and we had a look at the movie the other day, Knowing, with Nicolas Cage from 2009, I think. I want to do a Bible code on the word knowing. I think that's a key to these end times.
Well, yeah, and you can find your terms like this one, knowledge of desire, right? Or even his desire, that would be your spelling. Knowledge of wisdom, knowledge of spiritual understanding.
Knowledge will increase. What
Yeah.
does that mean? That's a great space to go look.
Yeah.
If it hasn't been done before, possibly has been done.
Do it. And his desire in all wisdom, all wisdom.
It almost looks like the way it's worded here is that when you're filled with the knowledge in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, that knowledge is so that you walk worthily of the Master, and that you're bearing fruit in every good work and increasing. I don't know, again, that's one way of looking at it.
Well, we talked the other day about you'll know them by their fruits.
Yeah.
You know, it's that concept.
But in this, it's saying you still have fruit, even though you have knowledge. You're just walking and bearing fruit, but you're just increasing in knowledge. You still have knowledge and you're still bearing fruit. You're walking, and as you're walking, you're increasing in knowledge.
Yeah.
It's like the parable of the servants. If you're using your talent, you'll be given more. You know, yeah.
And being empowered with all power.
Yes, that was surprising for me, that when I first looked at that. We're robbed of our power because we're not looking. We're not diligently seeking the Father, so we're robbing ourselves of our own power. Whether we know about it or not is another thing, and the teachers will be responsible for that at some point. But and there's my alarm. Sorry.
So
Yeah.
as we're walking and increasing in knowledge, we're also being empowered at that same time. They're increasing, both of them. The knowledge and the power is increasing and increasing, and for endurance and patience with joy.
Which kind of makes you wonder if we're not seeking the Father's word, but we're seeking something else. Maybe it's just knowledge of something else. Maybe it's even knowledge of what the enemy's up to. But is that disempowering us? If we're not seeking the knowledge of him, but we're seeking other knowledge, does that disempower us?
Go ahead.
I was just thinking that when Hosea talks about my people will be destroyed for lack of knowledge because they have rejected knowledge, he will also reject them as priests, since you have forgotten the law, the Torah of Elohim. I will forget your children. It's not, there's so much.
Is it in this verse, in this chapter? Or is it?
I think it's in 4, I think.
4. I got them backwards. It's probably 4:6. Yeah, there it is, 4:6. My people have perished for lack of knowledge. So there's a perishing for a lack of knowledge. So his prayer is that we're not perishing, for instance. And there's a lack of knowledge because they've rejected knowledge.
But look at that there. If you read all that paragraph, it says, since you have forgotten the Torah of Elohim, I also forget your children. Wow.
It's pretty brutal. So, but to forget, that means you once knew.
Yes.
So you have forgotten.
But see how it's not, it's like, who was it that curse was on the children, not on them, it was on the children to the 4th and 5th generation.
That was also at Mashiach's, their public condemning of Mashiach before he died. Let it be on us and our children.
Yeah, they called it on themselves.
And this almost looks to me, Terry, like he could be speaking to even Israel, even the ones that aren't even alive. Like, since you have forgotten the Torah of your, like you didn't teach it to your kids. Like he could be talking to a generation.
Well, also weird. He says, my people have perished for lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
They have. It's not like they currently are. They have perished for lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
So what does the sentence before the previous verse say? If we go right to the top, I like to get the context a whole lot.
Yeah, well, we can, it's only a few verses here.
Sorry.
Start at the top here.
Let's do.
Start at the top of the book. Hear the word of Yahuwah, you children of Yasharel, for Yahuwah has a case against the inhabitants of the land, for there is no truth or kindness or knowledge of Elohim in the land. So this is how we do a rabbit trail and get off of Colossians. Now
Yeah.
it's here, but
So
it's all
sorry.
tied together because
Bonnie?
yeah, it's all tied together
Bonnie,
because of the
Yes, what?
I'm just saying there's the knowledge. You picked up knowledge.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but knowledge can be a dangerous thing, because how distracted can you get from Yahweh's word? I've been there. It's like rabbit trail after rabbit trail, and it's like there's a warning that, it's just there's no life in it. There's no light in it. There's so many discussions and groups about politics, and
Yeah. It's easy to do that, to do in code.
ascension. I'll say ascension symptoms. I'll say that term. And it's like there's no creator in there, there's no father in there, and there's no Torah in there.
yeah, we have here, see, he has a case against him. Okay, so that sounds like a judicial case. He has a case against them.
Yeah.
So he's saying, here's the charges. For instance, there's no truth, no kindness, no knowledge of Elohim in the land. Swearing and lying and murdering and stealing and committing adultery have increased, and bloodshed follows bloodshed. So therefore
Yeah.
the land mourns. He's talking about the inhabitants of the land. That's the case he's got. Therefore the land mourns, and everyone living there languishes. So if you feel like you're languishing, if you feel like your land is mourning, maybe the reason's up here. No truth or kindness or knowledge of Elohim, swearing and lying and murdering and stealing and committing adultery, and bloodshed follows bloodshed. So that causes the land.
Bloodshed. You can kill somebody and still not physically kill them, but with your words you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
You can murder somebody, and that's as bad. If you've broken one of the Torah, you've broken them all.
It says the people are languishing, the beasts are languishing, the birds are languishing, and the fish are taken away. However, let no one strive or reprove another, for your people are like those striving with a priest. You can't even correct anyone. And you shall stumble in the day, and the prophets shall also stumble with you in the night, and I shall make your mother perish. So here's about
hang on. We've got people striving with priests and priests not listening. There's haughtiness and pride.
Yeah.
At the highest levels of teaching.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good pickup, Bonnie.
Everybody's stumbling. Nobody can see. There's confusion. There's stumbling in sin. So here he talks about the mother. I shall make your mother perish, and I also forget your children.
It's pretty personal rebuke, isn't it?
It is. I make your mother
Yeah.
perish, but then the next thing he says is, my people have perished for lack of knowledge. So mother had lack of knowledge, it looks like. And then, since you have forgotten the Torah of your Elohim, I also forget your children. So mother, whoever the mother is, or, the mother of Israel, since you have forgotten the Torah of your Elohim, I also forget your children. As they increase, which of course is what children, their multiplication of the parents, as they were increased, so they sinned against me. My esteem they have changed into shame.
Because they haven't been taught from their mother. The children are perishing. They're going to be forgotten because the mother has not taught them. Aren't we supposed to be taught when we sit down and eat and drink? And
yeah, every mother should be teaching their children, and father too, for that matter.
Yeah.
They say it only takes like one generation for that education. So we're talking about increasing knowledge, right? But they aren't increasing in knowledge of the Torah, and that's why they're perishing.
So who is they? It's as they were increased, they also sinned against me, my esteem. They eat the sin of my people. So is there a difference between they and my people? Who's they?
Well, so I also forget your children as they were increased. So they
were increased. I'd say it's the children of Israel.
yeah.
They eat the sin of my people. Mhm.
And lift up their desire to their crookedness. This is not Zedek. We talked about Zedek before we started the recording. This is not controlling the monkey within. This is letting that monkey out of the cage. And it shall be like people like priests. I think Avraham Gileadi made this point in his Isaiah Explained, that it's not just the leaders. In his translation of Isaiah and his commentary, he said it's not just the people. The people are, or it's not just the leaders. The leaders are a reflection of the people. The people have voted the leaders in. So they are the same. If you have wicked leaders at the top, the people are wicked as well.
Mm.
And I shall punish them for their ways and reward them for their deeds. And if we don't look at it from leaders down to the people, but if we look at it from church leaders down to their parishioners, there is that idea as well, because this says like people like priest. And you have churches opening their doors to accept things that are abominations to the Father, and the people are running amok doing the same, and they're just running kill shot all over Yahuwah's word, just disregarding anything that doesn't fit their whims and lift up their desires to their crookedness. So you got priests that are going along with this and opening the doors and saying, it's okay. We love you. We love you and your sin, and we'll love you and your sin all the way to hell. Says they shall eat and not be satisfied, and they shall whore but not increase, for they have stopped obeying Yahuwah. Whoring and wine and new wine enslave the heart. So they are enslaved. Their hearts are enslaved. Shalom, Tobias. We are recording. And we are studying Colossians. However, we are in Hosea right now.
Hey everyone,
How are you?
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I need to move into
Hey,
another room
Tobias.
to not disturb others, so I will be quiet for a minute and then can talk freely.
Okay, awesome. So whoring and wine and new wine enslave the heart. My people ask from their wood, and their staff declares to them, for a spirit of whorings has led them astray, and they went whoring from under their Elohim. Hi, Leah. Welcome, sister.
Look at how many people we have. So good.
Yeah, that is awesome. A lot of talk about whores here.
Well, we're in Hosea.
There is that.
There's that.
It's a beautiful love story.
It really is. It really is. It ends
Please.
well, of course. Says, for Israel is stubborn like a stubborn calf. Would Yahuwah now feed them like a lamb in a broad place? Ephraim is joined to idols, let him alone. Their drink is sour, they have poured continually. Her rulers wildly loved shame. Just talked about this with the priest. And also the rulers of the country. Her rulers wildly loved shame. Sounds like a synopsis of watching the news if you did such a thing. A wind has bound her up in its wings, and they are ashamed because of their slaughterings. Talked about slaughterings up here as well. They slaughter on the mountaintops, burn incense on the hills under oak and poplars and terebinth, because its shade is tob. Therefore your daughters commit whoring and your brides commit adultery. They've got little seance stuff happening here. My people ask from their wood, and their staff declares to them. For a spirit of whorings has led them astray, and they went whoring from under their Elohim.
Remember in Deuteronomy, I think it was in Deuteronomy, where the Moabite woman and I can't remember which one it was of the Judah, that they were whoring in front of the tabernacle.
Yeah.
That's what that reminds me of there in 13.
Yeah.
Therefore your daughters commit whoring and your brides commit adultery. They flaunted that.
Yeah. Okay, so should we go back to Colossians then?
Yeah.
All right. So here's where we are.
Thank you for that rabbit trail.
Oh no, that's awesome. I mean, it was necessary, especially if Bonnie wants to do a table on knowledge. We had to go look at some of those terms she might be looking up. Give us a
Yeah,
preview.
it's so cool.
Yeah. It's very important. It's vital, and he's woven his truth through his whole word, so we can go do that.
It will be awesome. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Yes, it will, Bonnie. You have to do it.
We're looking forward to it.
It's fascinating. And did you know?
Maybe so.
Tiny bit. I remember my daughter coming home from high school. This movie was made in 2009. My daughter coming home from high school saying, Mum, one of our students has been chosen to be in a movie with Nicolas Cage. Guess who it was?
Who?
Chris Hemsworth.
I don't know.
I don't know who that is.
Thor. He's now famous as the Marvel god Thor.
Chris Hemsworth.
He was in my daughter's high school. Yeah. He was in my daughter's high school.
Wow.
He's the guy,
I think
in the classroom. He's the guy in the classroom holding the globe Earth.
We're losing you, Bonnie.
Oh, he's the guy in the classroom holding the globe Earth, talking about the theory behind what was supposedly going on. Anyway, I have to do a table on knowing. I have to.
He's usually playing a little bit the good-looking dumb guy. Isn't that the case?
Oh yeah, sometimes, yeah. Anyway,
I think he's also in the A-Team.
Oh, look, there's been lots of things there. Lots and lots and lots of things. Many great actors have come out of Australia, and now I'm doubting everything I know about everyone I've looked up to. But never mind, rabbit trail. Get off it. What are we doing? Colossians 1.
Yeah, so there's one of these famous long sentences, run-on sentences of Paul, so you got to kind of take it all in and break it down into parts and all of that. But so they're praying that you be filled with the knowledge of his desire in all wisdom and spiritual understanding. And it seems to me like it's saying so that you can walk worthily. To walk worthily of the master, pleasing all, bearing fruit so that you can bear fruit in every work, and also increasing in the knowledge of Elohim, being empowered with all power. Like that's where you get your powers. You get your knowledge first. You get your knowledge and you're bearing tob fruit. You're continuing to increase in your knowledge, and then you're empowered with all power. according to the might of his esteem, for all endurance and patience with joy. Endurance. When I was listening to Celestial, she was talking about endurance, that there's only one way to get endurance, and that is that Yahuwah gives you something that you have to endure. You are enduring something and you are staying with it. You are continuing to walk with him. You don't just say, I'll take some of that endurance. It's built into you from something you have to walk through. And patience with joy, giving thanks to the Father who has made us fit to share. So he's making us fit to share in the inheritance of the qadosh ones in the light, who has delivered us from the authority of darkness and transferred us into the reign of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins, who is the likeness of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of all creation. That kind of reminds me, Terry, of what you shared yesterday, that image you shared about Yahushua and what he had done at the execution stake. Do you remember what it said? You were sharing the Aramaic. You shared the Aramaic. Do you remember what script? Your mic's off, I think. Do you remember what scripture it was? I don't know if
It was in Colossians. It's in Colossians.
It was. Okay.
We're coming to it. I think let me see where it is. We'll get to it.
Yeah. Anyway, it was amazing. It was really amazing just to look at that one verse.
Yeah, it was an amazing. That's why I said let's study Colossians, because those verses just blew me away.
Do you think it was in 2?
Let's see.
You've got verse 17 there. That's very important.
I think I put it in watercolor. Let's see. Yeah, okay. It is Colossians 2:14. Chapter 2, verses 14 and 15. Just so profound.
Yeah.
Colossians 2:14 and 15.
Did this does this take us? I don't know if this took us just to, this is where this was the Targum. I don't know if this takes us to all of the books or just Genesis, for instance. No, but it only takes us to Torah. Okay. All right, never mind. I could
You
probably
want to skip ahead to 2:14 and 15?
well, we could just finish looking at this one first.
Yeah.
I just thought I would look at it if
Yeah.
we had it there to look at. So yeah, he created all in the heavens and on the earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or rulerships or principalities or authorities, all that we can see and not see, all have been created through him and for him. In him, it says, in him. And he is before all, and in him all hold together.
And you know, in most translations, you get all things consist. Like we have a consistency to matter, and everything has its consistency because of Yahushua. It's a profound thought.
Mhm.
The term "hold together" is similar.
Like matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we think of it at a molecular level, right?
Yeah.
That he's got a whole
Back to your chemistry class.
right back to chemistry. All of those whirling, whizzing electrons. He's holding all of that together. What did they say that there's they look for the God particle that holds it all together, or that is there in chemistry?
Mhm.
It's funny. I'm just coming out of a article which I was listening to, which I was thinking about maybe copying to you in current events. It's this this doctor which I have linked I think 2 or 3 times already. and it's a discussion about if viruses exist and not. And they also come to the God particle and to atoms. How do you call it in English?
Atoms, yeah.
Ad-
I know
atoms.
it's like atoms, but it's atom. Yeah.
Yeah, and electrons. So it's probably an interesting listen, because I think what he says, he did a lot of research. So when he comes to a conclusion, it's difficult to prove him wrong.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, and he says there is nothing which exists like an atom, or like an electron, or like a virus, or like a bacteria.
That it doesn't exist?
Yeah. So it's I mean I don't want to hijack now the study for today, but he says, well, if I would be asked if the Santa Claus is existing, the answer is yes, because depending on how you describe it, if you describe it as a big man with a white beard in red clothes, of course you can go to every shop, or to almost every shop in December and find him. But it's just a concept. It's a belief system. It's not reality. So I think it's really interesting to listen to that. It's sometimes a little bit of a strange discussion, because the guy who is interviewing him wants to prove him wrong, but probably doesn't really follow what he's saying. So I will link it. It's interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
Interesting.
Especially for Terry, you come from medicine, so maybe interesting to hear it.
Yeah, very interesting. Any of us. I mean, if he's saying nothing really exists, I mean, I'm sure all heard that we're not living in a real reality.
Well,
this
yeah,
is an illusion.
it's not. Yeah, it's not that maybe I said it wrong. So it's not that he said nothing really exists. He just says there are no particles like an atom or an electron. It's just energy.
Just energy.
Well, that's interesting, because it has to have a form. It has to have a form. It has to exist. It has to have a vessel. It has to have like a clay, like us, a vessel.
Yeah, maybe you watch it. Maybe all I can do is
definitely
give my understanding, and that might be wrong. So
no, that's cool. Send it.
I will. So let's go back to. But I found it interesting, because you come up with this topic right away, which actually not necessarily fits into what we are studying, and it's the same which I was coming out of half an hour.
All hold together.
Yeah, that's
where we were at, right there. So if you guys want to know what the name of this rabbit trail is, that's the name of it.
Hold all together. Yeah,
all hold together.
Question: is there a scripture that says my Father is always working?
Yeah, I think there is.
I think there is too. So to me, in my mind, that is the Father who's working to hold matter. He's always working. He's always holding the matter.
Yeah. That's a great point. That is a great point. There's another guy. I can't think of his name. I'm not the best at thinking of people's names. Seems like his name might be Alon. And he's a Jewish rabbi guy. And back in the day, before he was walking with the word, he was into partying and stuff, and he explains that he had some sort of a party event that almost took his life, and he had some sort of a heavenly experience where he was right there at death's door, and And he said he saw the world as just numbers. There, he could see like a bridge, and the bridge had numbers, and then the underpass had numbers, and it was all numbers. So that was really interesting, just being able to walk in and out of the numbers. It was all held together. It was just a bunch of numbers and codes and things. The matter, when the matter is broken down at that kind of level, where he was able to see what it was outside of the material realm.
Yeah, don't you think it's weird that an atom, we've got Adam with the T and then Adam with the D. Don't you think that's interesting?
I do. What a play on words. Absolutely. And a relationship.
It's a relationship, like the first, the smallest, the first, the beginning. Yeah. And now, and then all this Oppenheimer, which I did see that, then you've got talking about, anyway, that's a whole nother rabbit trail.
All the completeness was pleased to dwell. All the completeness was pleased.
Well, that like gives the completeness a personality. The completeness has a being about it.
The fullness. Yeah. And through him to completely restore to favor all unto himself. So there's a restoring to favor unto himself. Everything, whether on earth or in the heavens, having made peace through the blood of his stake. That's one of the things I think I was studying the last couple of days about. The only peace there is when Yahushua is the center of our lives. That's the only peace, even though there's the whole peace and prosperity, or peace and safety that the world puts out there. They're trying to find that peace outside of him, and you can only have it through him. And so a sinful life is one that is not brought into subjection with Yahushua as the center of your life, but it is one where people are seeking their own Tob will. They want to live their life for themselves and not submitted to Yahushua.
In that it's and through him to completely restore to favor all unto himself, whether on earth or in the heavens, to completely restore. If you restore something that was at once not needing to be restored, it was perfect. Do you see what I'm saying?
That was in the garden. That was before the fall.
Right. You don't restore something, you restore it back to favor. You're going to restore to favor, back to favor, restore it like it was. It used to be perfect. So it's like in earth or in the heavens. So like the heavens didn't used to be in favor with him. But the heavens having made peace through the blood. So the heavens were even reconciled through the blood of his stake.
Yeah.
Is what I'm seeing. That's deep, isn't it?
Really is.
Now where can you go?
Everything needed to be restored.
Everything needed to be restored. And that's what we have, a new heavens and a new earth, at the end. So is that what this is talking about? A new heavens and a new earth, or maybe restoring it back to, it's not new, it's restored.
Yeah.
It's new, but it's restored back to the original. Through the blood. I mean, look at the power. If viruses don't exist, then does his blood exist? Is the blood physical blood? It wouldn't be the physicality of the blood. It would be the power in the blood.
Yeah, though that was not said that no matter exists or something like that. It's just that the concepts we think about. So
This
There's the wrong.
blood.
Can you say it again?
This is special blood. This is not blood of man. This is blood that has not had any sin, the consequences of sin attached to it. No curses of sin, except for the fact that he took on the curse of our sin. But he was the only one who was able to do it. He was the only one. So
That sounds so simple. It reads so simply, doesn't it? Having made peace through the blood of his stake. But that was the whole almost like collapsing in of itself of the universe by having him shed his blood. It was so incredible.
yeah. Yeah, it's almost like you could do a code table called out of favor, right? And you who once were estranged and enemies in the mind by wicked works, but now he is completely restored to favor.
So restoration here is
Yeah,
the power
again.
of the blood.
In the body of his flesh through death to present you qadosh and blameless and unreprovable before him.
Before him, like the Father. That sounds really cool, doesn't it? Like he's presenting us so proud and clean and blameless and, you know, in like linen and fresh. And look what I brought you, Father.
So here, so there's your qualifier. You get a choice here. If indeed you continue in the belief, founded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the expectation of the Tob news which you heard. So there's a need to, again, do something. You have to stay. You have to stay in the belief, founded and steadfast. Because otherwise you can be moved away from it. Celestial was talking in one of the videos that I was listening to last night, and she was talking about leaders in the Christian church. And she said that the word that she had been given was this particular one will never see Yahuwah's face. He's joined the Freemasons, and he does very wicked things with men and with children.
She named a name there, didn't she?
Did, but I wasn't going to. But
yeah.
She does name a name, and but he has no expectation of seeing Yahuwah's face is what the word was. So it's important to not be moved away from the expectation.
Wow.
She listed many leaders, and not only leaders but also idols that people worship, that are actors, musicians, sports guys.
Yeah, she does not mince words. She does not mince words at all.
And somehow I feel like when I listen to her, I'm listening to him. I'm listening to how he is.
The Father?
How he is about his word, and that he's not okay with people just trashing his Torah like it doesn't exist. And, you know, he'll just wrap himself around everybody and everybody's sins and be, that's okay. You can do that. That's just all you have to do because my son died for you. Like that just so cheapens what Yahushua did. And it was not what the plan was. Is that people just keep going. Because in Hebrew, it is belief. If you're not obedient, you're not believing. It is the Greek that says, all I got to do is believe that he died for me and I can live like the devil, and that'll be fine. That is a Greco-Roman mindset. It is not Hebrew. Your belief is tied to your obedience, because you don't do one thing and believe another. That is a Greek concept of separating, and Roman concept of separating what you believe from what you actually do, how you live your life. But it's not here. This is definitely, you continue in the belief, founded and steadfast. You're not moved away from the expectation. You're bearing Tob fruit. You have Yahushua as your head. He is the one that you are standing upon. You're affixed to him. It says, who now rejoice. So I, Shaul, became a servant who now rejoice in my sufferings for you and fill up in my flesh what is lacking in Messiah's afflictions for the sake of his body, which is the assembly. I don't really know what this means. Is when we read it the first time, it was like, wow, how is there something lacking in his afflictions?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, does it?
But what we can do when something doesn't make sense is we can come over to the commentary and we can look at it here and say, you know, somebody here who's a lot smarter than me is going to have really honed in on this and say, give us some insight on this. How are his afflictions lacking? It says, fill up that which is behind of the afflictions of Mashiach. The sense of this passage is at first sight startling, which it was, but it could not have been thought difficult or doubtful had not false inferences from it tempted men to shrink from the obvious meaning. The afflictions of Mashiach is a phrase not used elsewhere. For affliction, properly hard and galling pressure is the ordinary burden of life and is generally spoken of only as coming on his servants. But like the common phrase, the sufferings of Mashiach, it must moan the afflictions which he endured. It is true, as has been thoughtfully suggested, that we are to count as the afflictions of his church, his assembly, his called out ones. But still, even if we are to include these indirect afflictions, we cannot possibly exclude direct. Next, Paul expressly says in the full force of the original that he fills up instead of his master what is still left unfinished of his master's afflictions. It says, see the passages quoted by Dr. Lightfoot in his note on this verse. He declares, i.e., succeeding to the suffering of Mashiach, he carries it out for the sake of his body, the assembly. This is indeed nothing but a clearer and more striking expression of the truth conveyed in 2 Corinthians 1:5. The sufferings of Mashiach overflow to us, so that we bear our part in addition to the full measure which he bore. And even in the commoner expression, to be partaker of Mashiach's sufferings, or to drink of his cup and be immersed with his immersion. But looking to the meaning and use of the word afflictions, we note that the afflictions of Mashiach must be his sufferings on earth considered simply as a part, though immeasurably the chief part, of the burden of humanity in a sinful world. So we're still suffering, in other words. They represent not the stake of atonement on which he alone could suffer, and in which any reader of Paul must find it absurd to suppose that he would claim the slightest share, but the stake of struggle against sin, even to death, which he expressly bade us take up if we would follow him. This he has still left behind. So this is that part of us joining him with what he's done and who he is. This he has still left behind. This in his strength every one of his servants bears, partly for himself, partly also for others. In the former light, Paul says, the world is crucified to me and I to the world. In the latter, he claims it as his highest privilege to fill up that which is behind of the afflictions of Mashiach for his body, which is the assembly. There's obviously an antithesis here, in my flesh for his body's sake. Paul suffers in his natural body for the mystical body of Mashiach. And then Benson commentary says, that is whereby I fill up that which is behind of the afflictions of Mashiach, that which remains to be suffered by his members, These are termed the sufferings of Mashiach. First, because the suffering of any member is the suffering of the whole, and of the head especially, which supplies strength, a ruach, sense, and motion to all. But they are for his sake, for the testimony of his truth. And these also are necessary for his body's sake, which is the assembly, not to reconcile it to Elohim, which has been done by Mashiach's sufferings, but for an example of patience to it. We talked about endurance, and for its further edification and establishment in favor, whereof, of which assembly I am made a minister, appointed to serve its best interest and daily employed in doing so, according to the dispensation of Elohim, or the stewardship with which I am entrusted, on your account or for your benefit, to fulfill or fully to preach. I have fully preached the Besorah, the mystery which has been hid from ages, namely that the Besorah should be preached to the Gentiles, and that they should be called into the assembly of Elohim without being subjected to the bondage of the Jewish law or the ceremony of circumcision. Okay, well, I would say that they come in, but once they've read the Torah, they are required to be obedient to Yahuwah's word. And Yahuwah is very clear about circumcision in Genesis 17. It says, which has been comparatively hid from former ages and past generations of men, but now is made manifest to his saints, that is, to true believers in Mashiach, even to Gentiles as well as Jews, though it was promised in the covenant with Abraham and predicted that mankind should be saved by belief. Again, a Hebrew understanding this word includes obedience. This was not understood by the Jews, and therefore it is here called a mystery, or a thing kept secret, an allusion in allusion to the heathen mysteries, to whom Elohim would make known by revelation, confirmed by miracles, and the accomplishment of prophecies, what is the riches of the esteem of this mystery. All right, so I'm just gonna stop there, I think, and move back. Because in him all the completeness was well pleased to dwell, and through him to completely restore to favor all unto himself, whether on earth or in the heavens, having made peace through the blood of his stake. And you who once were estranged and enemies in the mind by wicked works, but now he has completely restored to favor in the body of his flesh through death, to present you qadosh and blameless and unreprovable before him. If indeed you continue in the belief founded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the expectation of the Tov news which you heard. Okay. Talks about the secret which has been hidden from ages and from generations, but now has been revealed to his Kodesh ones, to whom Elohim desired to make known what are the riches of the esteem of this secret among the Gentiles, which is Messiah in you, the expectancy of esteem, who we announce, warning every man and teaching every man in all wisdom. So there's a warning of every man and a teaching every man in all wisdom, in order to present every man perfect in Mashiach. So there has to be teaching to present every man perfect in Mashiach. Interesting. And there's a laboring going on with the teachers, striving according to the working of him who works in me in power. Any more thoughts on Colossians 1? Terry, can you run through Colossians 2? I've got to go help Judah with our cow.
Yeah, let's see here.
You'll just pull up Colossians 2 ISR and
Yeah,
through. And I'll be joining you guys by my phone.
Oh, look, I had Colossians 2. About that, I already had it up.
Awesome.
I think I do. Colossians 2:15. Let me get it in other. Sorry, y'all, I have so many. Teza, can you pull this up? Look at my spinning wheel. I've got so much up. Teza?
I will try. Yeah, I'll try to.
Yeah, if you could get Colossians 2. I've got it in the Aramaic, but it's difficult to read like this. My other program is. See, maybe see it spinning. Maybe it'll do it.
That's me coming in.
Huh?
That's me coming in on my phone.
Okay. Colossians 2. Okay, got it.
Have you got it? Have you got it, Darlin?
Let's see which
So you
one.
don't need me to do it.
I don't know how to get this. Which one did she have it in? I've got which version?
It's
It's usually
ISR.
but I don't see it here with you.
I
That's
don't see it
interesting.
either.
Terry, you just need to go reduce your screen.
Reduce the
You
screen.
know what? No, reduce the size of
Let me see.
you know how when you can zoom in on something.
Uh-huh. Oh, here's Colossians. No, that's the commentary. Oh, y'all, how do you do it?
Terry, you can
I've got
also
it if
go
you
under
want.
Bible.
Uh-huh.
You can go under Bible in the top right there, and it'll bring up ISR, all the different ones. Just scroll down.
Oh,
Not
that's
scrolling for
interesting.
you, huh?
It's not scrolling.
Maybe you start.
Teza, can you get it up?
Yeah, darling, I've got it ready to go if you want.
You go. I've got Peshitta. I can do it in Peshitta. You want me to do it in that? But it might be good to do it. Do you want to do it in there?
I'm happy for it if you. That's up to you.
That would be lovely.
Okay. Let's go to 1. How did it end? Can y'all see that?
Yes.
I want to hear it in the Peshitta.
Okay. But I want you to know what struggles are to me for you and for those in, this is Laodicea, and for others, those whom my face have not seen in the flesh. Oh, y'all. Skipped. Not seen in the flesh, that may be comforted, that their hearts may be comforted, and that they may approach in love of assurance and the understanding of the knowledge of the mystery of Yahuwah, the Father, and of the Messiah, in whom him are hidden all treasures of wisdom and knowledge. But this I say, that not a man should deceive you in persuasiveness of words, though in the flesh, for I am separated from you in the flesh, but in spirit with you. I am in the spirit with you and rejoice. I see that And I see that your organization and the stability of your faith in the Messiah therefore, just as you have received Yeshua, the Messiah, our Adon, in him, walk as strengthening your roots and being built up. In him, you are being established in faith that which you have learned, in which may you abound with thanksgiving. Beware lest a man rob you by philosophy and by deception, empty according to the teaching of the children of men, and according to the principles of the world, and not according to the Messiah. For in him dwells all the fullness, look how that's spelled, fullness of the deity corporately, and in him also are you complete, who is the head of all principalities and powers. That's powerful, isn't it? And in him you are circumcised by circumcision that is not by hands, by putting off the body of sin, by the circumcision. The Messiah, by the circumcision of sins, the Messiah, you are buried with him, and you are buried with him in baptism, and in it you arose with him because you believed in the power of Yahuwah, who raised him from among the dead. And you who died, you had by your sins and by the uncircumcision in your flesh, he has given you life with him and has forgiven us all of them, our sins. And he has blotted out by his authority the bill of our debts, that which was adverse to us, and he took it from the midst and nailed it. And this is what I loved, and he nailed it on his cross. And by putting off his body, he stripped the principalities and the powers and shamed them openly by his essential self. That's so powerful, isn't it? Y'all want to just dissect
Yes.
that? Let's dissect that before we go on. That's so much, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
You want to go? Y'all want to dissect this part out first? Sometimes Aramaic is hard to read. As you can see, the sentences get spliced up a little bit. Anyway,
I'm
okay.
following up. Kerry, I'm just following on the ISR, and where it's got in 14, having blotted out. Can you read number 14?
14,
again?
sure, 2:14. Okay. And he has blotted out by his authority the bill of our debts, that which was adverse to us, and he took it from the midst and he nailed it on his cross, and by putting off his body, he stripped the principalities and the powers and shamed them openly by his essential self. That's so cool, isn't it? That's just
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
he stripped it he shamed him openly and by his essential self. I studied this yesterday, and I looked and I thought this would be Miltha again, that Miltha might be in there. It still might be in there. No, but it's not. Isn't that cool? His essential self. By his essential self. I mean, what a word. Look at that. Wow. By his essential self. I've never seen this before. This was amazing. He is we can break this down. He blotted out. So let's just.
It says in the ISR, having blotted out the certificate of debt against us, and then it's got 2 strokes by by dogmas which stood against us. So that's interesting.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the bill of our debts, the adverse to us. So maybe that's what dogma is in Aramaic, adverse to us. Let's see. Adverse to us. I wonder if that's dogma. Contrary. Yeah, contrary, that might be the word dogma. This is so powerful, isn't it, y'all? The principality.
Yeah.
Like he took it and he nailed it on his cross by putting off his body. He stripped the principalities, and it's like he took them down right, like, yeah, in front of him. But so there were people, the evil principalities, principalities, powers were watching that, and he shamed them openly. So openly to who? The principalities and powers. So, wow. And he shamed them. How do you shame you beat him? You beat him. He beat him.
You bring it to light.
Yeah, you beat him at their game.
It's like checkmate in chess, it's like all over.
Yeah, game over, checkmate, done. Somebody was making a comment about in Mel Gibson's film, The Passion, that scene where Satan, as soon as Yahushua says it's finished, and he dies, it goes immediately to hell, and it shows Satan in a pit all by himself. Do y'all remember that scene? In The Passion, and he's just riding around Satan, screaming at the second of Yahushua's death because he lost. And I think he nailed it. I saw a YouTube on this, and it was showing this. He just nailed that. Satan was defeated. That's what this is saying to me, is it's showing that scene that, like, it's like they didn't even know it until the last second that checkmate.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
Just that saying, he nailed it. We nailed him, but he nailed our debt.
Yeah, so look, he's functioning as high priest right here. There's a whole story about that, how his linen gown was not torn. The high priest tore his gown, when he said he was something in the trial where the high priest tore his gown. He had just delegitimized.
Blasphemy. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, he sung out blasphemy because he had ended up saying that I am.
Right. He said blasphemy, and he tore his robes. But when he tore his robes, he tore off his legitimacy as the high priest. You don't tear your robes. They had
That's exactly right. That made him high priest.
That made so Yahushua is high. He was acting as high priest. He was officiating the sacrifice himself. He was officiating as high priest, his own sacrifice as the high priest.
That's right.
And it says this here. It's just such power in these words right here. And he took it and he nailed it on his cross by putting off his body. He stripped, just powerful, the powers and principalities. Yeah, he functioned as high priest. So he nailed it. He was officiating his own sacrifice. And yeah, his own
definitely. Yeah.
Amazing, isn't it? His essential self. Isn't this cool? That word is so. What is it in your Bible, in your scripture? What does it say for his essential self?
What verse is it?
Has up, it's of the end of 2:15. He shamed the powers, and he shamed the powers them openly by his essential self.
He made it, just in the Greek, it's having disclaimed the rulers and the authorities, he made a show of them public, having triumphed over them in it.
Publicly, openly. Yeah. They were there watching.
And this is why we go to the Aramaic, because we can find treasures like this. Look, the term essential self is
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's incredible.
That is a redeemer right there.
I mean, yes, essential self. It's not even miltha. It's okay. Look at this. This is substance. So this is like matter, the essential matter. This is like what was in his blood. It was the essential substance of life, of redemption, of glory, not glory, but power and
Esteem.
Enough to save
Wow.
enough to save all of us.
Scroll down a little bit, please, Terry.
Yeah. So there's a root word right there. Let's just see
Yeah, what are the Hebrew letters for that word? I can't make it out.
Hebrew letters are kuf, nun, mem. Kuf, nun, mem. Let's see what our Greek has to say for this.
No wonder they despise us so much.
Yeah. The principalities, Leah. Is that what you're talking about?
No wonder why they despise us so much.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, no wonder
Because
they despise him. They despise him so much. They despise us so much because of the defeat that they weren't expecting. They thought they won by killing him. And then, like you said, that scene where Hasatan or, the fallen angel.
So they know
he was just the recognition of, wow, you know what? They probably felt their authority being taken away. Right? The same way that, they thought, for a long time they had dominion over the earth, but that was just ripped from them.
Yeah. So really,
they despise us because it was transferred to us, basically. If we follow and believe and walk in Yahuwah's ways and follow Yahushua, then that authority is in us. They despise us for it.
Who despises us, Leah? Sorry?
The fallen ones,
Okay.
These people, these principalities and these powers that were shamed, they're mad. They're mad.
Done in the garden became defeated the moment that Yahushua died on the cross. That was ripped from them. That authority that they stole was taken back.
Yeah, I couldn't.
So
every time when you were asked before, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I am. I've heard every word since. I just didn't hear that word. Sorry, darling. Thank you.
Okay. Look at this word, y'all. By his authority. Look at this word. By his authority. Wow. By his authority in his commandments. That's cool. That's cool. That's a cool word. Hey, Kuf Dalet. By his authority. I mean,
in saying that, Leah, it reminds me of in Corinthians, it says, "Oh death,
where is your sting?"
Where is your sting, or something to that effect. Oh death, where is your sting?
And he blotted out. So let's just see what that. And he has blotted out. So that's, and he has. So done. He deleted, he canceled, he hid them, he blotted them out. Ein Tet Aleph. Tet Aleph. Blotted out by his authority. The bill. Tet Rush. The bill. Handwriting. Bill of our debts. So that would be sin. Our debts. Our liabilities, our wrong, our debts. Root word, there's het, vet.
I'm just having a thinking about blotting out liabilities. I immediately think about insurance, like life insurance, and we talk with salvation as blessed assurance, don't we? Just imagine having the best insurance policy ever. That when you die, he blots out everything. It's paid. Your ransom is dealt with. It's done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? These the principalities. Let's just see who's a principality.
Well, that's the Ephesians 6 thing. You know, we pray against the powers and the principalities of the air, the rulers of the Shamayim. That's those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, this is what got me so excited yesterday about studying this. Anything else y'all see? Y'all want to look at or have me look up in what it means over here?
I see the principalities as almost like the 200 that fell, that rebelled.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like they, are the overseers, because Hasatan's whole kingdom, the whole kingdom of darkness, is set up very organized, very army-like, even kingship didn't even come along until, so they have kingship. They understand Yahuwah's way of doing things. So it just, it mimics or tries to copy what Yahuwah has in the Shamayim. And so those things came about because of them trying to counterfeit his. So the fallen ones, the principalities are probably like, their names were written in Enoch.
Mm-hmm.
So they're probably like the higher ups that have split up the domains amongst themselves. And then they have, lesser demons and different ranks and everything else. But the principalities, obviously, those are very powerful ones, and they have dominion over. So we have like the Prince of Persia and the Prince of, if we did probably a name study out of the ones in Enoch and all of that, it would probably coincide somehow to show that they are the ones that had authority. But then Yahushua stripped them in a sense of that. Like they do still have authority, but they don't have dominion the way that they did after the falling in the garden. Right. So he stripped them.
I agree with you. I think that's exactly who they are. The principalities are the big boys. The big boys. Yeah. And then let's see what it says, if we can glean anything here about who are the powers. Look at how long that is, Bonnie. This is what you look for doing codes, or like, wow, look at that. Long letter, long number of letters.
I like to say it in the Aramaic there. You've got the transliteration next to it. Wal Sha'ali Tane. There you go.
Yeah. And authorities and the powers.
Yeah, that'd be a great one to do a code on.
It would be.
Yeah.
Principalities and the powers. Who are they now? I mean, we know who they are.
And if we've just read in the Aramaic that Yahushua, the
the guy who holds everything together, every atom in the universe, every piece of energy in the universe together, shamed the principalities and defeated all of it. Why do we think they're still in charge?
I don't know, because this is so cool. This
They're
is
not.
this is so powerful. They're defeated. They're they're shamed. You know,
Is that the great deception? We believe
Yeah.
they're still in charge.
yeah,
That just might be the great deception.
I think you're right, Bonnie. I mean, they were so
Yeah.
defeated, they were shamed. Shamed.
What is that
Now-
word for stripped there, Terry?
He's stripped. He's stripped.
Doesn't
Pay-
that look like the ancient word for
Exposed.
Pharisee?
What?
How is Pharisee spelled?
Oh,
say-
well, it's pay resh samek.
Pharisee, yeah.
How is Pharisee spelled?
Wow.
In our Hebrew,
Both the Pharisee.
Aramaic.
I don't know. Anybody have? I
I
can
had to look up the dictionary here. You click on the binoculars, and you can.
Oh,
look at the
I
word.
can go up there. Okay,
Long
so yeah, okay. What word do you want? Pharisee?
Pharisee.
P-H-A-R.
I-S-E.
So we're looking at Resh Samek Yod. Okay, let's see.
Is that right? Is that the right spelling?
There's one more E.
Yeah, one more E. Okay.
Press enter. Oh, now you got out of it.
So here we go. The Pharisees. So here, yeah, similar. Well,
Well,
hey, Rush.
So it's a play on word.
Oh,
yeah.
it is.
Stripped and exposed. Wow.
Ah,
And that's what it came against. And people don't realize. They go, no, the Old Testament was done away with. No, the Pharisees were stripped of their power.
have you ever noticed how similar Pharisee and Pharaoh is?
Yeah.
Is it
Oh, I haven't.
Pharaoh? Pharaoh's got a hay on the end, I think. You can put that in too. Put that in too. Let's have a look at that as well.
Pharaoh? It may not.
Pharisee's got a sheen iron on the end. Whereas stripped has got a samek yod. Pharaoh is
Yeah, similar. I mean,
it's got an iron in it. Yeah.
This is one thing I like about Stephen Ben-Zanoon when he does like a biblical breakdown in the Hebrew, and he always brings it back to that they commingled themselves, the Pharisees. They commingled themselves with, they were like sons of the Nephilim or whatever. They commingled themselves with the fallen ones, and he always brings that back in scripture and shows that that's what that Yahushua was trying to expose, that you are the sons of the vipers. You're vipers. You know, that's who your father is, the father of lies. Like you don't represent our heavenly father. Your father is the father of lies. And when he does, there's one that he just did. I'll put it in Discord, and it's just awesome that he's probably one of the only teachers that I've seen that does that always kind of brings it back and reminds us that, that there were people all throughout history, the kings, the leaders, they all had, like he'll say reptilian, but it's representative of, like snakes and reptiles and everything that the fallen ones represent, the Nephilim, and that they have tried to put themselves in authority over us since the beginning of time. So
That's
I'll
so
put the latest one anyways in Discord, because it's really good to see kind of a reminder, because we look at humans as humans. We have to remember that there are those walking the earth that are commingled.
Yeah.
They're shapeshifters.
Good point. Yeah. Nephilim. Yes. So that is interesting. I have forgotten that the Pharisees, you vipers, you brood of vipers. He was telling us a lot there.
And remember, there's the term, the synagogue of Satan.
Synagogue of Satan.
Yeah.
So
that was in Cynthia's table on NASA.
Yeah. So we have pharaohs today, we have pharaoh presidents, we have and Pharisees, we have leaders of big, churches, assemblies. So we have principalities and powers. He took their power away, but we still have them, like Leah, like you were saying, they're still here. They do have power over us right now. They can't do stuff to us now, like,
Only if you give them the authority.
but legally, I mean, they can make you pay your property taxes and make you to, what I'm saying. They have legal rights on this earth now. We have to follow the law as long as it doesn't go against Yahuwah.
Is it worth mentioning David Straight?
Who's he?
Just somebody that doesn't pay anything anymore. lots of great teaching.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Goes to common law. Anyway,
Yeah,
another rabbit trail.
I'm just looking at, in the sense of beginning leadership. Pharaoh, in the sense of beginning leadership, a general title of Egyptian sovereigns. I'm just looking at Parash, which is the root word for Pharisee. Parash with a sheen. All the different meanings of those letters together. It means to spread, spread out, extend, stretch. Let's see. Akkadian parashu is to fly, literally to extend one's wings. He spread, spread out, extended, stretched. It also means with a noon prefix was scattered, was spread out. It means to make distinct, express clearly, to declare, explain. He distinguished, he explained. To explain, decide as a judge. He made distinct, expressed clearly, clarified, declared, specified, explained, interpreted. That makes me think of let's not say that the stone was rolled back, but let's say that this happened instead. To keep off, keep aloof, separate, abstain, to retire. He kept off, kept aloof, abstained. Contents of the stomach, excrements, dung, literal meaning that which is secreted.
Wow.
It's also a horse and horseman, rider, knight. And also the same in Aramaic and Ethiopic. Ethiopic is horseman, rider. And then when we go look at Paras, it's their relationship is very, very close to, this is Peresh Samic, which is what we saw here, not when we were looking at Pharaoh, but when we were looking up that word for, he stripped, and what was the other word when you looked at it? He stripped and he
stripped.
Exposed. There we go. To expose. So here's what Paras means. So this is without the yod on the end. To spread, to split, divide, break, especially to break or slice bread. He split, divided, broke bread. To divide, hinder. He broke the neck of an animal. He broke, especially bread, sliced. To have hoofs. So that takes us back over to the horses over there. Bird of prey, perhaps the bearded vulture. It's also a hoof. It's a curtain, a carpet, that which is spread or extended. The half of something, the half of a mina, the half of the length of a furrow, a share, a reward, premium, half of a loaf, prize, half of something, the slave's fare, and a field containing a grave area. So all of that is paras with the samic.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Very cool.
You said with the parash, with the sheen on it for Pharisee, you said to stretch. And I wonder, with when we get to the saying to stretch the truth.
Yeah, or that's a stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just was wondering. Yeah.
So we still have Pharisees among us. Yeah. And pharaohs.
Yeah.
principalities and powers. But they're defeated by his essential self. So cool.
Very
Did
cool.
you
I
get to
saw
see
a
this?
video.
Did you get to see
Oh,
the
sorry.
word? I'm sorry, Leah, go.
I was just gonna add in quickly that I seen a video where they did do a DNA test on the remains of Pharaoh or one of the pharaohs, and there was, I think, a third Nephilim, or not of human DNA.
You know,
So,
they could,
well, I was just going to say, if we look at, I believe it was Nimrod, he got changed. Like, he wasn't born that way. He got changed by something and became 1/3 Nephilim, 2/3 human, 33, right? Or is it the other way around? But it was like 33, which is where probably the 33 comes from. But Pharaoh had the same thing too. So they're, it's just a reminder that, we're not dealing with humans. We're not dealing with, that we're still dealing with those who rebelled against Yahuwah.
yeah, and in our everyday life, we see people every day that
every
are
day,
not
yeah.
humans. They're not humans. We're seeing them every day. If
Well,
Yahushua was walking around Jerusalem and the Pharisees seemed like they were everywhere. I mean, these genetically altered people, which, I know our genetics are not perfect like they are supposed to be. Someday they will be, but so we're around these genetically altered people. We're around the Pharisees all the time. Vipers all the time. Anyway, Darla, are you there?
I am here. Yeah.
Can you look at this word and break this down like paleo, like the meanings of each letter? And I love to do that, and tell me what that says. You think?
Well, the bed has a dichotomy concept. It's what's in versus what's out. It's two, not one. So if you just have one, you don't have an argument, right? You bring the second one in, then you've got, well, then there's the other. So it looks like with this meaning in his person, just the bet alone is like, this is not an other that is in rebellion to Yahuwah. It is an other that is in agreement with Yahuwah. So in his essential self, he is in agreement with Yahuwah. And so this kuf, I was thinking about this while I was milking and listening. We talked about this word tekifa, which I think was Aramaic for mighty. Terry, we're talking about
Nimrod.
in Genesis 10 verse 9, that he was mighty before Yahuwah. And so this was the Aramaic word when we looked it up. And so Tekifa is mighty, but Tekufa is the turn of the year. So when we get to the 7th month, that year turns and we go back to the 1st month, and it just keeps going around and around and around on the calendar. So there's something that's about power and strength and turning, and Yahushua always made the right choice. So the Kuf letter is the back of the head. He kept the back of his head to sin. He did not, when we search about the lust of the eyes, his eyes were not turned to look on sin the way men do now, men and women, of course, male and female. But the back of his head, if you've heard of that phrase, talk to the back of the hand, right? Like, I'm not listening. He wasn't engaging with the sin of this world. He's still pure. Eric Bissell talks about the kuf as being what pours out qadosh from heaven. It's not tainted by man. It is absolutely pure. Man cannot taint it. Okay, so man could
Darla,
not. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's so cool that Enter the Stars, he does a breakdown of the human anatomy, the eyeball and everything, but he shows where it's like Yahushua is at the base of our head, the back of our head.
Ah,
It's him. Like, you know, each of us has that there. And I don't know. I'm not one that's good at explaining stuff like that, but so like the eyeball is almost like the domed earth, and then he goes through like the design of the brain. But yeah, right at the base of our top of the spine, base of our head, the back of our head is Yahushua.
The crystal gala.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we keep the back of our head towards sin. Like if some part of our body, it's like, you know, the back of the head is what you're getting. You're not getting the front. You're not getting the part with the eyes. The eyes are very precious. The tongue is very precious. The tongue needs it needs to be kept under severe restraint, right? So it's at the front of the head, but the protection, you might say, is at the back, because we turn our back to it. We don't engage in it. That's a protection for ourselves. And it can certainly be seen as a protection of Yahushua. He's qadosh. He doesn't look on evil with the eyes of man that would lust after evil. And so the noon is for perpetuation. It's like fish spawning and making more and more and more. Or it's the concept for the noon is in a seed, like a mango seed is a large seed, right? But inside that seed is a little tree, and inside that is all the other little trees that will come from that tree. So within one little seed, it has its perpetuation designed in it, which is why it's so important to not have genetically modified this, that, and the other by man in his fear and his lust for control over all living things, including food sources that Yahuwah has provided for us. So that's perpetuation, and it's seed, and then the wa is connected to, or what is affixed to. The mem is water, and we have the waters above and the waters below. So Yahuwah connects the waters above and the waters below. And it's also womb, and it is like Eric Bissell talks about the mem being a manifestation letter. Like he manifested things, right? He could walk through walls. And then the hey is also revelation. And it's also the letter, we talked about this earlier today, probably before recording, but Abraham and Sarah both received a hey, and then they were able to create the tribes of Israel. Came from Abraham and Sarah, and every clan was to be blessed through his fruit, the fruit of his womb. So yeah, hey is a very important letter. And it also, it has a sense of multiplication about it. Multiplication. It's not just that Abraham had 2 children, but Yitzhak was the son of promise. So he had the one son. However, Yitzhak had 2 sons, twins, and then Yaakov had 12 and a daughter. That's 13, and I think Esau had maybe as many as that as well. I know Ishmael, Abraham's other son, he had 12 sons as well. So there's a multiplication. It wasn't just the one son that Sarah got. She got the house of Israel came from Sarah. She prevailed.
I just think it's so cool to break it down like that with the meaning of each letter. It just expands that so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And to put the hey in Abraham's name, it changed his name from exalted father to they fly, they soar. They fly, they soar. I forget the third verse and meaning, but it is in there. It's Abraham, and those are 2 of the meanings. They fly and they soar.
Wasn't it they rise, they fly, they rise, they soar?
I don't know. I've got my lines right here. I can see if I can locate it, but it's escaping me right now. And then we have obviously Aleph Bet Resh is one of the words. And the Hey Mem. So it's just Aleph Bet Resh. I think I can find it pretty quick. Aleph Bet Resh. There we go. Oh, here it is. To be strong, to fly, to soar. So they're strong. They're strong. They overcome. They rise, they fly, they soar. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, it's all very cool.
And
Yeah.
I did want to say I wanted to revisit circumcision because I do not believe, I have not been given the understanding that Paul was speaking against circumcision, because if he did, he would be a false apostle. Because Deuteronomy 13 tells us that if anybody goes against the Torah, that's anybody. That is the Messiah. That's Paul. That's anybody today. If they teach against the Torah, then they're a false teacher. And so, but all of these children were circumcised when they were infants. And then also it's important to say that in the Hebrew, it's Brit Milah is the circumcision Yahuwah called for, but Brit Pariah is what they do today. So at some point, the Jews decided they were going to cut more than Yahuwah said to cut, because the Hebrew young men were going to the Greek gymnasiums and they were able to just pretend that they were not circumcised. So the Jews figured that, well, we'll fix this. We'll just take off more skin than is supposed to be taken off. It is a cut, but it is not anywhere near what they are taking off. So there is a difference in Hebrew between a Brit Milah and a Brit Pariah. And Yahuwah requires it in Genesis 17. It's very stern. And Abraham had it done when he was 99, I think. And all of the adult men in his household, and he had many that were with him, men that worked with him and were basically like servants there. And these adult men were circumcised, and his son Ishmael. And then when Yitzhak was born, he was the first one to be circumcised at 7 days old, I believe, or 8 days old. But it's something Yahuwah required. However, the time came when men would walk away from their Torah and from their families understanding, their ancestors, their lineage of that we keep Torah. We keep the Torah, and we have the Birakot, the blessings of Yahuwah. And if we don't keep the Torah, we have the curses of Yahuwah. And this is in Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26. But that each of those people that were at Mount Sinai said that they would keep the Torah and they would receive the blessings of Yahuwah. And then if they didn't, there were the curses. So at some point they stopped teaching their children, or the children decided they were going to do something different. But even they were circumcised at day 8, but then their heart hadn't been circumcised. So their heart has to be circumcised as well. They can't just run around with a physical circumcision and that heart circumcision doesn't follow. We have something today outside of this in Gentile churches where babies are christened as babies and or dedicated as babies, but when they grow up, they may be a completely different person and not be dedicated. They need to walk in a circumcised heart, but there still is a physical circumcision. And so when the people came into starting to be taught, they came into following the Messiah. Many of these were 10 tribe people that were scattered. And so they had Torah already in their ancestry, but they had broken away from it. So now they're coming back. They have to be taught Torah. They have to start. They go to the sanctuary on Shabbat. and they have to learn the Torah. But in Hebrew, obedience is tied to belief. And so as they read, as they studied Genesis, and they studied what Yahuwah required of Abraham, they would have had to bring themselves into compliance, or they would have had to say, I'm not obeying that. So one is obedience and belief, and one is disobedience, rebellion, and disbelief. And so they would have had to move into obedience as they learned the Torah. You can't keep Torah and not be circumcised, because that's not walking in obedience. And you was very specific about it. But it's not something Paul required of them on day 1 or even day 12. That as they learned, they would walk in obedience, or they wouldn't. Just like it happens today. People, when they hear something from the word, or they read something, they study something, they either walk in obedience to that or they don't. Let no one disqualify you.
Okay. Let not therefore a man disturb you about food or about drink or in distinction of feasts and beginnings of months and of Sabbaths. Because these are shadows of those things that were future, but that were future, but the Messiah is neither a man, but neither wish by humility of mind or for your condemnation to subjugate you to the worship of angels, by which he presumes upon something that he sees not, and emptily and is puffed up in the mind of his flesh, holding neither the head, from whom the whole body, instructed and settled in the joints and in the members, and grows with the growth of Yahuwah. If for you have died with the Messiah to the principles of the world, why, as if it is that you live in the world, you are judged, not namely not touch neither. Sometimes this is backwards, it's hard to read, y'all. Not namely touch or taste, neither cleave, which are these things that need to be destroyed. And commandments are, and the teaching the sons of men, and they appear to have in them the word of wisdom, in the appearance of humility and worship of Yahuwah, and without sparing of the body, not in things of honor, but in those things which the needs are of the body. Well, that was so broken up for me. Did y'all get anything from that?
That we probably need to look at that in the ISR.
Yeah, read that. It's a little bit choppy. You want me to share? I'll share screen and you go to ISR.
Okay. Let's see here. Share screen. Okay, Colossians 2.
What was that section called? Let no one deceive you? Let no one
I think that's what it was.
Let no one deceive you. So he's just fulfilled everything right there by his self. And now he's going in, don't let anybody deceive you.
Let no one therefore judge you in eating or in drinking or in respect of a festival or a new moon or Shabbats, which are a shadow of what is to come, but the body of the Messiah. Let no one deprive you of the prize, one who takes delight in false humility and worship of messengers, taking his stand on what he has not seen, puffed up by his fleshly mind, and not holding fast to the head, from whom all the body, nourished and knit together by joints and ligaments, grows with the growth of Elohim. That's an interesting phrase. If then you died with Messiah from the elementary matters of the world, why, as though living in the world, do you subject yourselves to regulations? Do not touch, do not taste, do not handle, which are all to perish with use, according to the commands and teachings of men. These indeed have an appearance of wisdom in self-imposed worship, humiliation, and harsh treatment of the body, of no value at all, only for satisfaction of the flesh. Okay, we're right here at verse 16.
Yeah, a lot of people could throw this up to you about new moons and Shabbats.
Yeah,
Let no one judge you.
Yeah.
My mom loves this one.
And this is he's writing to people who are keeping a new moon and keeping Shabbats, and they're eating. If they're keeping Torah and it says that they're being obedient, then they're keeping Torah. So according to Leviticus 11, we know what we can eat and what we can drink. So there are other people that say you can't eat this and you can't eat that, but that's not what Yahuwah says in Leviticus 11. We can go over there and see what he says, because it's saying don't let people judge you about what you're eating.
So we need to eat clean. We need to eat.
Yep, we need to eat according to Yahuwah's word, and according to Yahuwah's word, we keep our Shabbat and new moon as well. So, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying to them, "Speak to the children of Yashua, saying." So this is what they were given. These are their rules. These are the living creatures which you do eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Whatever has a split hoof completely divided, chewing the cud among the beasts that you do eat. Only these you do not eat among those that chew the cud, or those that have a split hoof. The camel, because it chews the cud but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the rabbit, because it chews the cud but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the hare, because it chews the cud but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the pig, though it has a split hoof, completely divided, yet does not chew the cud, it is unclean to you. So there's specifications. It has to have both. Their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses you do not touch. They are unclean to you. These you do eat of all that are in the waters. Anyone that has fins and scales in the waters, in the seas or in the rivers, that you do eat. But all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, all that move in the waters, or any living creature which is in the waters, they are an abomination to you. Okay, so a lot of people got to deal with abominations that you're eating. They are an abomination to you. Of their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses you abominate. All that have not fins or scales in the waters is an abomination to you. This is what the Creator says. These things are not made for you to eat. And these you do abominate among the birds. They are not eaten. They are an abomination. The eagle and the vulture and the black vulture and the hawk and the falcon after its kind. Every raven after its kind, and the ostrich and the nighthawk and the seagull and the hawk after its kind, and the little owl and the fisher owl and the great owl, and the white owl and the pelican and the carrion vulture, and the stork, the heron after its kind, and the hoopoe and the bat. All flying insects that creep on all fours is an abomination to you. Only those you do eat of every flying insect that creeps on all fours, those which have jointed legs above their feet, with which to leap on the earth. Those of them you do eat, the locust after its kind, and the destroying locust after its kind, and the cricket after its kind, and the grasshopper after its kind. But all other flying insects which have 4 feet is an abomination to you. And by these you are made unclean. Anyone touching the carcass of any of them is unclean until evening. And anyone picking up part of the carcass of any of them has to wash his garments and shall be unclean until evening. Every beast that has a split hoof, not completely divided, or does not chew the cud is unclean to you. Anyone who touches their carcass is unclean. And whatever goes on its paws among all the creatures that go on all fours, those are unclean to you. This is dogs and cats and bears. Anyone who touches their carcass is unclean until evening. And he who picks up their carcass has to wash his garments and shall be unclean until evening. They are unclean to you. And these are unclean to you among the creeping creatures that creep on the earth, the mole and the mouse and the tortoise after its kind. Think turtle soup. At the gecko and the land crocodile and the sand reptile and the sand lizard and the chameleon, these are unclean to you among all that creep. Anyone who touches them when they are dead becomes unclean until evening. And whatever any of them in its dead state falls upon becomes unclean, whether it is any wooden object or garment or skin or sack, any object in which work is done, it is put in water, and it shall be unclean until evening, then it shall be clean. Any earthen vessel into which any of them falls, whether it is in it becomes unclean, whatever is in it becomes unclean, and you break it. Any of the food which might be eaten on which water comes becomes unclean, and any drink which might be drunk from it becomes unclean. And on whatever any of their carcass falls becomes unclean. An oven or cooking range, it is broken down. They are unclean and are unclean to you. But a fountain or a well, a collection of water is clean. But whatever touches their carcass is unclean. And when any of their carcass falls on any planting seed which is to be sown, it is clean. But when any water is put on the seed and any part of any such carcass falls on it, it is unclean to you. And when any of the beasts which are yours for food dies, he who touches its carcass becomes unclean until evening. And he who eats of its carcass has to wash his garments and shall be unclean until evening. And he who picks up its carcass has to wash his garments and shall be unclean until evening. And every creeping creature that creeps on the earth is an abomination. It is not eaten. Whatever crawls on its stomach and whatever goes on all fours and whatever has many feet among all creeping creatures, think like a centipede or something, that creep on the earth, these you do not eat, for they are an abomination. Do not make yourselves abominable with any creeping creature that creeps, and do not make yourselves unclean with them, lest you be defiled by them. For I am Yahuwah your Elohim, and you shall set yourselves apart, and you shall be set apart, for I am set apart. And do not defile yourselves with any creeping creature that creeps on the earth. For I am Yahuwah, who is bringing you up out of the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt, to be your Elohim, and you shall be set apart, for I am set apart. This is the Torah, the instruction of the beast and the birds and every living creature that moves in the waters and of every creature that creeps on the earth, to make a distinction between the unclean and the clean, and between the living creature that is eaten and the living creature that is not eaten. Okay. Think what I need to do is move this little bar out of the way. Oh, maybe I've just lost it. Okay. There we go. So we don't let people judge us, but we have the instruction of Yahuwah as to what we can eat. What verse is that in? Are you guys there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
I'm
know
here.
what verse it's in.
Trying to figure out which verse it was where he said, don't let people judge you.
It was the first verse of the new section that we
Oh, no, but I don't have
started. Yeah.
yours up.
So
We were in chapter 2, right?
yeah.
I think we're probably just getting tired. Maybe I'm not into. Let me just
Maybe we're not.
maybe it wasn't into. Sometimes Bible Hub does that. It'll say one thing at the top, but it's there we go. There it is. We just weren't in two. I think we were in one and it was saying two. All right. So we have Yahuwah's instructions in his Torah on what we can eat, what we can drink. Can't really think of anything. Well, the only thing on drinking is like you can't get drunk. Like we're not supposed to be getting drunk, and we're supposed to be so filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, not alcohol, that is distorting our judgment, our ability to take in the word. And then of course there are scriptures that deal with fasting. So if anybody's ever said, you've been fasting too long, that might be a sense of somebody judging you on what you're eating, or you're allowed to eat the things that Yahuwah says that you can eat. This could be there's a high population of vegetarians here in Hawaii that are against people having cattle for food or milk, right? So that would be another instance of that. Festivals, okay, well, we have the festivals Yahuwah has given us in Leviticus 23, and that includes our Shabbats. There's also new moons. Ezekiel 46, 1-3 talks about our new moons and our Shabbats, and our work days. So knowing that, just to say here that Yahuwah is on a different calendar than Rome's calendar that we inherited. So coming out of that calendar is important to break away from, to have a distinction, learn his calendar. So these things, what we are allowed to eat, the feasts that we are to keep, new moon Shabbats, it says they're a shadow of what is to come. This is an interesting, I don't know why it's written like this, but the body of the Messiah. Okay, here we go. Let no one therefore judge you in eating or in drinking or in respect of a festival or a new moon or Sabbath, but the body of Messiah. So this is just an interjection here. They are a shadow of what's to come. So don't let anybody judge you but the body of the Messiah. Okay, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Let no one deprive you of the prize, one who takes delight in false humility and worship of messengers. Taking his stand on what he has not seen, puffed up by his fleshly mind. So there's a lack of humility here, and not holding fast to the head. His head's gotten so big he doesn't have room for Mashiach in here, Yahushua. He's not holding fast to the Messiah, from whom all the body nourished and knit together. So he's got a little head that's rearing up. So all the body grows with the growth of Elohim. That's an interesting phrase. 19. Let's go look at it real quick. Here the increase, all right, bye-bye, add. Here the increase is simply the increase of Elohim, the increase which Elohim gives and which grows into his likeness. In this passage, there is also a greater scientific exactness. The joints and bands are the articulations and ligaments. The two functions thereof are the diffusion of nourishment and the knitting together of organic unity. True wisdom is to keep close to the appointments of the Basora in entire subjection to Mashiach, who is the only head of his assembly. Self-imposed sufferings and fastings might have a show of uncommon spirituality and willingness for suffering, but this was not in any honor to Elohim. The whole tended in a wrong manner to satisfy the carnal mind by gratifying self-will, self-wisdom, self-righteousness, and contempt of others. The things being such as carry not with them so much as the show of wisdom, or so faint a show that they do the soul no tobness, and provide not for the satisfying of the flesh. What the Adon is left indifferent, let us regard as such, and leave others to the like freedom. And remembering the passing nature of earthly things, let us seek to esteem Elohim in the use of them. Not holding fast the head, he who does not hold Mashiach solely and supremely above all others does not hold him at all. The want of firm holding of Mashiach has set him loose to pry into, and so tread haughtily on pride himself on things which he has seen. Each must hold fast the head for himself, not merely be attached to the other members, however high in the body those members might be. Joint points of union where the supply of nourishment passes to the different members, furnishing the body with the materials of growth. So a strong concern about the whole body, all of Yahuwah's people. The sinews and nerves which bind together limb and limb, belief, love, and shalom are the spiritual bands, compare knit together in love. With the increase of Elohim, that is wrought by Elohim, the author and sustainer of the believer's spiritual high, in union with Mashiach, the head, and tending to the honor of Elohim, being worthy of him, its author. There again, the concept of being worthy. Increases with the increase of Elohim, whereupon to mutual edification and love, it grows with a divine growth and spiritual increase, arising from the efficacy of Elohim and tending to his esteem. We're tending him, we're servants of him, being filled with the influences of his favor. It is established and strengthened by little and little in light and purity and all favors till it attain to the measure of its perfect stature in Mashiach Yahushua our Adon. Whereas an increase in the traditions of men and the inventions of flesh do only blow it up with winds and imposthumes to the disfiguring, deforming, and destroying of it. All right. So anyway, we took a look at something that was a little bit complicated in our English language. If then you died with Messiah from the elementary matters of the world, why, as though living in the world, do you subject yourselves to regulations? Do not touch, do not taste, do not handle. So this is that concept of maybe joining in a fast that Yahuwah didn't call, or not eating something Yahuwah said that we can eat. Which are all to perish with use, it says, according to the commands and teachings of men. So this is according to the commands and teachings of men is what this do not touch, do not taste, do not handle is about. And it's all to perish. Again, it says perishes with lack of knowledge as well. These indeed have an appearance of wisdom in self-imposed worship. Okay, so this tells you what the problem is. Self-imposed worship, humiliation, and harsh treatment of the body. It's of no value at all, only for satisfaction of the flesh. So if you hear about this diet and that diet, and you shouldn't eat these things, and you shouldn't eat those things, like those are man-made diets as opposed to what the diet Yahuwah gave us. I think that's what the point is here. And they're of no value at all. So here's a takeaway. You died with Messiah from the elementary matters of the world. So don't subject yourselves to man's regulations. and that we grow with the body. There's no head that rises up. We're attached to the head that is Yahushua. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? I think we've covered 2 chapters of Colossians. Maybe we save the other 2 for next week. We are preparing for, we're getting ready for Yom Kippur. It's in about 5 weeks, a little over 5 weeks. So I'm starting to prepare my kids for getting ready for Yom Kippur, the time of atonement. So does anybody else have anything else they want to share before we close today? We had a great study.
It was an awesome study. Thank you for doing that. Those couple of verses in Colossians are just off the charts. The whole thing was great. Good.
It was awesome. It was really awesome. Just as Teza says, let's just bind ourselves closely to Mashiach, Yahushua. And that's where we want to be found. We want to be found bound to Yahuwah and his son, our Mashiach, who is at one with the Father. And he is so far ahead of us, above us in every way. And learn from him. Learn from him. Hallelujah. Well, Yahuwah be with y'all for your next week. And we'll be back on the Roman Saturday with a table, I think Jeanette and Bonnie are going to be sharing a table on Sound of Freedom. So that should be exciting. And Yahuwah be with y'all. And we're going to say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.